Alright guys, this is gonna be my chapter review of One Piece of chapter 1018 Jinbe versus Who's Who. Remember, if you guys enjoy what you see, hit that like button and subscribe to make sure you guys get content like this in your inbox every day. And let's get right to it. The chapter starts up with a cover page in which page 1 is trying to read a book about dinosaurs. And Ulti keeps bothering him because she wants him to play with her and her plushies, which are clearly supposed to be the dinosaur forms of the All-Stars and the other Todoroki's as well as Kaido. Because you got a Chinese dragon, which is supposed to be Kaido. You got a Brachiosaurus, who's queen. A Pteranodon, who's king. And so on. And you got Ulti hugging what appears to be an Allosaurus. At first I thought it was a Spinosaurus because she was hugging it. So I thought it was supposed to represent page 1. But I was just being dumb. It's very clearly supposed to be an Allosaurus. So the only plushies that are missing are Ulti's Pachycephalosaurus and page 1's Allosaurus forms. But if you look in the background, you can see a drawing of a Spinosaurus, which is supposed to represent page 1, which I thought was pretty cute. Yeah, the original request asked for this to be the kids version of page 1 and Ulti, but I sort of agree with Oda's decision to keep them as adults because it just looks cuter that way. Alright, so let's get into the actual chapter proper. So a chapter begins with you got the narrator telling you that there's a total of 300 headliners who turn on the Beast Pirates, and it shows you Hamlet, who's the giraffe zone, who he's sort of the head of the giraffe, and you got a bison smile user. That's what I think it is. I don't remember this character at all, so I don't know his name. I don't know exactly what animal it is. It looks like a bison to me, or like a buffalo or something. But yeah, you got a lot of infighting that's going on because of Tama's dango fruit. So the Beast Pirates sort of figure out that Tama can turn them against each other. So they obviously chase her to try to kill her. And you got Usopp running away with carrying Tama. And they're being chased by Beast Pirates member. And this is where you see Daifugo sort of attack the Beast Pirates with a move called Scorpion Death Needle, which is pretty cool. And if you guys don't know, Daifugo is supposed to be Scorpion Zone, and he was a warden, I believe, for the Udon prison. And you got a cute moment where Tama sort of thanks him, and he just gives a thumbs up. So yeah, they're able to get away, and eventually they run into Speed and Gazelle Man, and they sort of run away with them. I feel like Gazelle Man does not get enough love. I like his design. It reminds me of sort of Rocky Horror sort of dress style, which I think is pretty funny. And you have a funny moment where Speed picks up Nami and Tama, but leaves Usopp behind. He eventually managed to jump on in the back. And so at this moment you get Zeus asking Nami if she can be her servant, in which she replies that she'd rather have him as a partner instead. And that sort of makes Zeus happy, and he runs away, sort of shocking people. As Nami's new partner, sort of clearing the way for them to get away. And this is where we sort of cut back into the CP Eiichiro, and where they're sort of talking about the casualties the Beast Pirates have received in the war, and they mentioned that the Beast Pirates troop number has gone from 30,000 to 20,000, which gives the samurai a sort of a more even fight. And they recognize that if you count the people who have turned against the Beast Pirate, the war would actually be 16,000 Beast Pirates versus 9,000 samurai, which is a huge sort of boost for the samurai's favor. They're still greatly outnumbered, but they've sort of managed to fight back. And if I remember this correctly, didn't the samurai start with 7,000 members? So while the samurai's numbers are going up, the Beast Pirates is like sort of dwindling down. And one of the CP0 members, who has a sort of round mask with like a top hat and like a round nose, mentions that they don't really care who wins or loses, but they just want a certain person to not be able to live through this, because they supposedly have confidential information that could harm the world government. We find out that this person is actually who's who in the last chapter revealed who was a member of CP9, who was arrested after losing the Gumu Nami. And so they mentioned that he's fighting Jinbe, which to me sort of tells me that although they don't really care which side wins the war, they really prefer if Jinbe were to beat who's who, and not just beat him but actually kill him. So that's where we cut back to the 4th floor, where we sort of see like a bunch of destruction in that area as who's who and Jinbe fight. And this sort of gave me a bit of a perspective of Jinbe compared to who's who in terms of size, which is really huge. Jinbe looks dwarfed compared to the who's who. But yeah, they start fighting again. Obviously, who's who is using cipher pole techniques. So he uses the moonwalk to jump around, and Jinbe actually starts questioning him about if he has a grudge against Luffy, because Luffy is the current user of the Gumu Nami, and who's who mentions that his grudge isn't exactly against Luffy. It's mostly against red-haired Shanks, who appears to be the one that stole the fruit from them. If you guys remember correctly, when Luffy ate the fruit, Shanks mentioned that no, it wasn't Shanks, it was Lucky Roo who mentioned that they took the fruit from one of their enemies. So this appears to have been who's who's sort of ship who they stole this from, which resulted in who's who being arrested for losing the Gumu Nami, which was apparently pretty important. So after this, who's who does the Fang pistol on Jinbe, who blocks it with armament hockey. But it appears that the Fang was able to slice him a little bit, which shows that Jinbe's armament hockey isn't strong enough to handle who's attacks. So who's who does a sort of Fang pistol barrage at Jinbe, which destroys the bottom floor. And as he does this, he mentions that although he didn't hold a grudge against Luffy because he's not the one that stole the fruit, but because he wears the straw hat that Shanks wore, and he uses the power of the fruit, that he does have a sort of resentment for Luffy simply because of that. So it's sort of like a guilty by association type of thing. So yeah, they show you just below the third floor where all the Fang pistols are going through the floor and attacking the Beast Pirates from at the bottom, on the bottom floor, which is pretty funny. And yeah, they're running away, and then we cut back again to the fourth floor where Who's Who mentions that Jinbe's armament hockey isn't strong enough to handle his attacks. So it was pretty smart of him to move away instead of blocking it. And this is sort of where you have like a sort of racism moment between Who's Who and Jinbe, where Who's Who calls him like a slimy fishman. And he's like, sort of said that he didn't expect Jinbe to be able to move so fast on land because he's like a slimy fish. And Jinbe is like, oh, it's not cool to say that about fishermen in the current time, which sort of reflects sort of racism in the real world. And Who's Who sort of mockingly apologizes and mentions that there's something he really want to ask Jinbe. And so he uses Iron Body and uses a really cool move called Fang Cavalry Flash, where it appears that he used armament hockey on his fangs and attacked Jinbe. Jinbe blocks his attack with by armament hockeying up his arms and sort of blocking the attack. And this appears to have hurt Who's Who. I guess Jinbe sort of flips him, and then he proceeds to use water bullets at Who's who uses Shave to dodge it. And there's sort of where you see like the sort of pirate dynamic in this fight, in which you can tell that Jinbe, it's pretty obvious that Jinbe is sort of the stronger, more defensive fighter, while Who's the bigger, but he's faster in the sense that he's able to dodge the attacks more, and he's able to deliver a higher volume of attacks. And so Who's Who mentions that the flip followed by the water bullets hurt him. And this is what has people talking online, is that Who's Who mentions that when he was in prison, there was a guard who told him sort of mockingly that that he should pray to a certain someone for salvation. And he mentions that that in ancient times, slaves believed in a god who was supposed to save them, and they called him the sun god Nika. And he's supposedly a legendary warrior that would come and save them by bringing laughter to their lips, and basically like free them from their suffering, as Who's Who puts it. And he mentions that because his prison sentence was lasting forever, that he was pretty in a pretty bad spot mentally. And so the guard sort of mocking him about having to pray to someone, he sort of actually did cling to that legend of Nika. And so a lot of people think that Nika is supposed... What I've seen online is that people think that Nika is supposed to be Luffy because of the sort of... I don't know how to say it, noodly limbs that that Oda drew Nika with. But this is not something that is unheard of in One Piece. They people have shown like Luffy being depicted like that, but I think I also saw somewhere where Usopp was depicted with the same noodly sort of style. So I'm not sold on the idea that it's Luffy. It could be Joy Boy. Um, but yeah, Who's Who goes on to say that Jinbe led the Sun Pirates, who were made up of slaves because they were fishermen, and fishermen were obviously used as slaves because they were seen as less than humans, but were stronger, so they were able to carry, people from Mauritius. And yeah, so basically what he's trying to say is that Jinbe is probably Nika because of the fact that he led the Sun Pirates, and Nika is supposed to be the Sun God, and Jinbe is a strong warrior, which Nika was supposed to be. So apparently this visibly angers Jinbe, and Who starts to use his finger pistols, and he uses a move called Spots on Jinbe, which is just like a rapid fire finger pistol attack, and Jinbe just blocks this attack, and you see a bunch of beast pirates sort of cheering on Who's Who and saying that even a warlord is no match for one of the Toby Roppo. And yeah, you just see Jinbe's anger building up. And Who's Who goes on to say that the guard who told him about Nika disappeared a few days later without trace. So he interpreted it as nobody is supposed to know about Nika. Nobody is supposed to believe in this, and this is pretty obvious that the Celestial Dragons will not want people to know about Nika and not believe in him, because the Celestial Dragons are more the more prolific slave owners in the One Piece world. And so yeah, it's obvious that people aren't supposed to know about it. So what Who's Who did is that he basically risked his life to break out of prison, and he wanted to ask Jinbe what he knew about Nika, or what he thought about it. And eventually one of Who's Who's fingers break, because while he was telling Jinbe this, he continued to do the finger pistol attack. And so one of his fingers breaks, and it looks like Jinbe sort of throws him. And yeah, Jinbe uses his fishman karate to grab Who's Who, and he uses a sharp grip to sort of hold on to him. And he pretty much tells Who's Who that he doesn't have anything to say to him, and he gets really mad. So Jinbe flips Who's Who, and Who's Who gets mad, and he uses another fang pistol on Jinbe, which Jinbe takes head on, and he uses his ultimate fisherman karate technique. And right before he does his technique, Who's Who asks him why is he so mad all of a sudden. So Jinbe steps on his tail, and he basically tells him that he shouldn't make broad statements about other people's sort of histories, referring to the fact that Who's Who was sort of trying to imply that he was supposed to be Nika. And so he uses the ultimate technique, Gargoyle Tile Fist, which is sort of an armament hockeyed out punch. And it appears that he's using Conqueror's Haki, because you can see the sort of black lightning, shooting off of the punch. And yeah, this appears to knock out Who's Who. So this fight could be over, but yeah, Jinbe just tells him that if he's gonna make stuff up about people's history, he better not be half-assed about it. And yeah, that's how the chapter ends. And there's gonna be a break next week, so no One Piece chapter. But this was a pretty interesting fight. You get a lot of lore in this fight, as well as like a lot of action. So yeah, I thought it was really cool that they introduced the sun god Nika, which I feel like it's pretty obvious that he's gonna play a really important role in this story later on. But I'm still not convinced that Nika is gonna be Luffy. I feel like it's gonna be it could be Jinbe, it could be Fisher Tiger, because Fisher Tiger was the original captain of the Sun Pirates, and later he gave his role to Jinbe. And so yeah, that's how the chapter ends. Hopefully when the next chapter comes out in 2 weeks, we get to see sort of the results of this fight. We probably won't. It's probably just gonna jump back to another fight. But this was a pretty interesting chapter. Hopefully I get better at doing this as I go on. But this was my chapter review of One Piece chapter 1018. Remember, if you guys liked what I did here, remember to like the video, subscribe, try to share it, and yeah, I'll try to have content like this daily. Most of my content is probably gonna revolve around playthroughs. I'm playing Subnautica right now, so make sure to tune in tomorrow if you guys want to see part 2 of Subnautica. I'll also probably be continue reviewing One Piece as it comes out, and yeah, if you guys got any other manga, any shows, any comic books that you guys would like me to review, or any video games you guys want me to play, make sure to comment anything you guys want me to do in the comment section, and I'll see you guys next time.